Hello, my name is Mateo Carter, and I'm here to share how I stumbled upon a moment that changed my life forever. A moment where compassion led me to rediscover the love of my life. It all began on a rainy evening as I rushed to catch a flight for an important business trip. The rain was relentless, blurring my view as I waited at a stoplight. My windshield wipers fought a losing battle, but through the water-streaked glass, I caught sight of something, or rather, someone, that seized my attention. A woman, soaked to the bone, clutching a tiny baby to her chest. Her tattered clothes clung to her, and even in the dim light, the exhaustion etched on her face was unmistakable. Something about the scene tugged at my heart in a way I couldn't ignore. I should have driven off when the light turned green. After all, I was running late for a flight that couldn't be missed. But my mind wouldn't let go of the image of that woman and her baby standing defenseless against the cold rain. I hesitated, torn between my responsibilities and this overwhelming sense of urgency to help. As the seconds ticked by, I found myself pulling over to the side of the road. Stepping out into the storm, I approached her, my designer suit quickly drenched. "Miss," I called out, my voice barely audible over the rain. She turned her gaze toward me, and for a brief moment, our eyes met. Beneath the layers of weariness and despair, there was a spark of strength in her expression. "Please, take these," I said, handing her the keys to my house. "Go there, get dry, and rest. I'll be back tomorrow to check on you." She hesitated, clutching her baby tighter. Her lips trembled, not just from the cold, but from disbelief, I assumed. It wasn't every day that a stranger handed over the keys to their home. "Why?" she finally managed to ask, her voice fragile yet defiant. And honestly, I didn't have a perfect answer. "Because you need it more than I do right now," I replied simply. The encounter was brief, yet it left a profound impact on me. As I got back into my car, drenched but oddly at peace, I couldn't shake the thought of her and the baby. Who was she? What had led her to such a dire situation? The question swirled in my mind, haunting me as I made my way to the airport. Even as the plane soared into the sky, my thoughts remained grounded with her. Would she trust me enough to go to my house? Would she and the baby be safe? For reasons I couldn't fully comprehend, I felt an intense need to know more about her. Little did I know, this act of compassion was about to unravel an emotional story that would redefine everything I thought I knew about love, empathy, and inspiration. The next day, I walked into my house, unsure of what I would find. To my relief, she was there, sitting quietly on the couch, her baby resting in her arms. The woman who had appeared so vulnerable and frail in the rain now looked entirely different. She was still visibly tired, but something had softened in her expression, perhaps the smallest glimmer of hope. "Thank you," she said softly as I entered, her voice steadier than before. We exchanged pleasantries at first. I offered her some tea, and she reluctantly accepted. As we sat in the quiet of my living room, I could tell she was grappling with something, whether to trust me, to share her story, or perhaps to remain guarded. Eventually, as the tea cooled between us, the floodgates opened. Her voice, hesitant at first, grew steadier as she began to recount the chapters of her life that had brought her here. Her name was Grace. She spoke of a time when her life had been vastly different, a life filled with dreams and possibilities. But those dreams had been shattered by the man she once thought she loved. Her ex-husband, consumed by alcoholism, had turned their marriage into a living nightmare. Abuse became a routine, and Grace, desperate to protect herself and her baby, had no choice but to leave. Listening to her, I felt a deep pang of empathy. It wasn't just her words. It was the raw pain in her eyes that conveyed the gravity of her experiences. After leaving her husband, she managed to find a small apartment and a modest job. But when her employer downsized, she was one of the first to go. Without an income, she quickly fell behind on rent, and soon after, she and her baby were evicted. "I never thought I'd end up like this," she said, her voice breaking. "I've spent the past month on the streets, trying to survive, for her." She looked down at the baby in her arms, her eyes brimming with tears. She deserves better than this. Her story wasn't just heartbreaking. It was humbling. Here was a woman who had endured so much, yet her focus was never on herself but on her child. That level of selflessness struck a chord deep within me. I couldn't imagine how she had found the strength to keep going under such circumstances. Every detail she shared painted a clearer picture of her resilience and love for her baby. I didn't know what to say. Words felt inadequate in the face of her struggles. Instead, I simply listened, allowing her to release the weight she had carried alone for so long. In those moments, I realized this wasn't just an emotional story. It was a testament to human strength, to the way love and determination could persist even in the darkest of times. As the hours passed, I found myself wanting to do more for her, not out of pity, but out of a growing sense of connection and admiration. Grace wasn't just a woman in need. She was a beacon of resilience. And though she didn't know it yet, her journey was about to take a turn she couldn't have anticipated. As Grace settled into my home, the days grew quieter but no less significant. I would catch glimpses of her moving about the house, her baby cradled securely in her arms, and there was something familiar about her presence, something I couldn't quite place. Meanwhile, Grace began to show signs of curiosity about me. She would ask simple, casual questions at first. "What made you stop that day?" Or, "Why would someone like you take such a risk?" Her questions felt more than just polite. They felt intentional, as though she were piecing together a puzzle. One evening, as we talked over dinner, she finally asked for my full name. "Mateo Carter," I replied, not thinking much of it. But the moment the words left my mouth, her expression shifted. It was subtle, just a flicker of recognition in her eyes, but enough to make me pause. "That's a strong name," she said quietly, though there was a tremor in her voice. I brushed it off, thinking she was merely being kind. As the days passed, her demeanor changed. She seemed thoughtful, almost introspective, and I couldn't shake the feeling that she was holding something back. Then, one afternoon, as I was getting ready for a quick workout, I removed my shirt, not realizing the bathroom door was slightly ajar. Through the narrow opening, Grace caught sight of my shoulder, a birthmark I had carried since childhood. It was nothing remarkable to me, but to her, it was a revelation. Later that evening, I noticed her glancing at me differently, as though she saw something in me I didn't yet understand. She didn't say much, but her questions became more pointed. "Did you grow up in a small town? Were you ever close to someone named Grace?" Her words, though casual in tone, sent a chill down my spine. Why did she know to ask such things? Why did her gaze linger just a second too long after each question? The truth began to unravel slowly. Grace didn't share her suspicions outright, but her actions spoke volumes. She would watch me as though trying to reconcile the man in front of her with someone from her past. Meanwhile, I began to feel a strange sense of déjà vu around her, as though we had crossed paths before. The mystery of her behavior gnawed at me, yet I couldn't bring myself to confront her about it. There was a tension between us now, a silent understanding that something deeper was at play. I couldn't put my finger on it, but every interaction felt layered with unspoken emotions. Grace was holding something close to her heart, and though I didn't yet know what it was, I had a feeling it was about to change everything. Little did I know, the story of who we were to each other was already written. It just hadn't been revealed yet. It was late one evening when Grace finally decided to share what she had been holding back. We were sitting in the living room, the baby peacefully asleep in her arms. The atmosphere was calm, almost serene, but I could feel the weight of something unsaid hanging between us. Grace looked at me with an intensity that was hard to ignore. "Mateo," she began softly, her voice trembling just enough to catch my attention. "There's something I need to tell you." Her hesitation only deepened the suspense. I set my coffee mug down, leaning forward as if to physically bridge the emotional gap between us. "What is it?" I asked, my voice steady, though my heart had begun to race. Grace took a deep breath, her fingers tightening around the baby's blanket. "Do you remember? A girl named Grace?" she asked, her tone carefully measured. The question caught me off guard, like a distant echo of a forgotten memory. At first, I couldn't make the connection. Grace? Of course, I remembered a girl by that name. My first love from years ago. back when life was simpler and love seemed invincible. But what did that have to do with the woman sitting before me? I do, I replied cautiously, my mind racing to piece together what she was implying. That's when she lifted her gaze to meet mine, her eyes brimming with both fear and hope. Mateo, I'm that Grace. For a moment, time seemed to stop. My thoughts spiraled as I processed her words. How could it be? The girl I had spent countless nights thinking about, the one I had searched for in vain after life pulled us apart, was sitting right here. My Grace. The realization hit me like a tidal wave, bringing with it a flood of memories, her laughter, the way she used to light up a room, the promises we had made to each other as teenagers. I didn't know how to tell you, she continued, her voice breaking slightly. When I saw your name, I thought it couldn't be true. But then I saw the birthmark on your shoulder, and I knew. She paused, her eyes searching mine for a reaction. I was afraid you'd be angry, that you'd think I hid it from you on purpose. I didn't know if you'd remember me. Anger? How could I feel anything but overwhelming joy? Grace had been my first love, the person who taught me what it meant to care deeply for someone. And now, here she was, after all these years, sitting in front of me. Grace, I said, my voice filled with emotion, I've been searching for you too. I never forgot you. Not for a single day. Her tears flowed freely now, and I found myself reaching for her hand. In that moment, it felt as though all the years of pain and separation had been leading us back to this. Whatever challenges lay ahead, we would face them together. But as I held her hand, I couldn't help but wonder, how had fate orchestrated this? And what else did it have in store for us? In the days that followed her revelation, everything between us seemed to shift. The weight of her secret was gone, replaced by a sense of freedom and joy. Grace and I began to dream together, weaving plans for the future as though the years we had lost were just a brief pause in our story. Her baby, Emma, became the heart of our little family, her laughter filling the house with a warmth I hadn't realized I was missing. I found myself falling in love with Grace all over again. Not just the Grace I had once known, but the woman she had become. Resilient, selfless, and filled with a quiet strength that inspired me every day. We would stay up late talking, reminiscing about our shared past while imagining the life we could now build together. It was as if fate had rewritten our paths to bring us back to each other, and we were determined to honor it. Our days were filled with simple joys. Watching Emma take her first wobbly steps across the living room brought us both to tears. Sharing meals together at the table turned into cherished rituals, filled with laughter and the kind of connection I had always longed for. It wasn't just a romance story. It was the kind of family I had always hoped to find, built on compassion, empathy, and a shared sense of purpose. Grace and I decided to make things official. On a sunny afternoon, we stood in front of a small group of friends, exchanging vows that felt like promises we had already kept in our hearts. As I slipped the ring onto her finger, I knew I wasn't just marrying the woman I loved. I was also committing to being the father Emma deserved. The moment was perfect, a culmination of everything we had endured to find one another again. For a while, it felt like we had finally reached our happily ever after. I would catch Grace watching Emma play, her eyes filled with a quiet gratitude that mirrored my own. We had been given a second chance, and we were determined to make the most of it. Life had brought us together in the most unexpected way, and every moment felt like a reminder of how precious it all was. But even in our happiness, there was a sense of fragility, as though life was holding its breath. Grace would sometimes sit quietly by the window, lost in thought. I'd ask if she was okay, and she would smile and reassure me, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something lingered beneath the surface. Little did I know, the joy we were building would soon face its greatest test, a test that would forever change the course of our lives. Our happiness was radiant, but life, as it often does, had its own plans. It started subtly. Grace would occasionally complain about feeling unusually tired or lightheaded. At first, I dismissed it as exhaustion from taking care of Emma, but as weeks passed, her symptoms grew more alarming. One evening, as she struggled to catch her breath, I knew something wasn't right. "We're going to the hospital," I insisted, my voice firm but laced with fear. The tests were thorough, and the waiting was agonizing. When the doctor finally walked in, his expression told me everything before he even spoke. Grace had cancer, advanced, aggressive, and already spreading. The words hit me like a freight train. Grace, who had endured so much and found her way back to happiness, was now faced with an unthinkable battle. "We'll fight this," I said, gripping her hand tightly. "We'll do whatever it takes." I left no stone unturned. Specialists, experimental treatments, trips to world-renowned hospitals. There wasn't a single option I didn't explore. Grace, ever the fighter, faced each step with a quiet courage that broke my heart and inspired me at the same time. But as weeks turned into months, it became painfully clear that the disease was winning. Every day, I watched the woman I loved slip further away, and there was nothing I could do to stop it. Through it all, Grace remained Grace. She smiled for Emma, laughed at my terrible jokes, and even teased me about my overprotectiveness. "Mateo," she said one night, her voice weak but filled with love, "promise me something. Promise me you'll take care of Emma. Love her the way you've loved me." I could barely speak, the weight of her words crushing me. "I promise," I whispered, tears streaming down my face. "With everything I have, I promise." When the end came, it was both sudden and painfully slow. Grace passed away surrounded by love, her hand in mine as I told her for the 1,000th time how much she meant to me. The house felt unbearably quiet without her, but Emma's presence became my anchor. She was a piece of Grace, a living reminder of the love we had shared. I vowed to honor Grace's memory by giving Emma the life she deserved. Becoming Emma's father wasn't just a responsibility, it was a privilege. I legally adopted her, ensuring that she would always know she had someone who loved her unconditionally. Each day, I saw bits of Grace in her. The way she smiled, the determination in her little steps. Emma became my reason to keep going, my inspiration to find joy even in the shadow of loss. Though Grace was gone, her presence was everywhere. In the laughter of her daughter, in the memories we had created, and in the lessons she had taught me about compassion, empathy, and resilience. Life had dealt us a cruel hand, but it had also given us a love so profound that it transcended even death. And through Emma, that love would live on. What would you do if life brought you love, only to test it in ways you never imagined? Mateo and Grace's story isn't just about chance or romance. It's about the depths of compassion, the strength of empathy, and the legacy of love that endures even after heartbreak. This journey has shown us how fragile yet powerful human connections can be, and how even in loss, love finds a way to persist. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever witnessed an act of kindness that changed someone's life? Or perhaps you've experienced a moment where love and resilience carried you through the unthinkable. Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to know how this story resonates with you. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss more emotional stories like this one. We have so many inspiring journeys to share, and your support makes it all possible. Let's keep exploring these tales together and finding hope, love, and strength in every chapter.